Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Owen Bell had always taken pride in his work as a custom furniture craftsman. His calloused hands knew how to shape wood with the same precision he believed he'd used to build his family alongside Claire. 15 years of marriage, a 12-year-old son named Liam, a comfortable house on the outskirts of a small American town, and a thriving workshop seemed like the pillars of a solid life. That was, until the accident happened. A poorly adjusted circular saw sliced deep into his right hand, forcing Owen to stay home for 6 weeks while he recovered. It was during this period of forced inactivity that he started to notice something different about his wife. In the first few days after the accident, Claire seemed caring enough, preparing his meals and helping with his bandages. But Owen noticed a subtle distance in her actions, as if she were following a routine instead of showing genuine affection. Claire had always been organized and methodical, but now she seemed more focused on her appearance than usual. She started wearing different perfumes, trying new hairstyles, and buying clothes Owen had never seen her wear before. When he asked about these changes, she gave vague answers, saying she just felt more confident lately thanks to a new group of moms she'd connected with at the local gym. The name Vanessa began coming up more and more in Claire's conversations. Vanessa Hart, according to his wife, was an inspiring woman who led a wellness group focused on female empowerment and personal growth. Claire spoke about her with almost religious admiration, quoting her philosophies on self-discovery and the importance of reconnecting with oneself. Owen initially saw this as a good thing. Claire had spent years fully dedicated to the family, maybe it really was time for her to focus on her own development. But as the weeks went on, mentions of Vanessa and the group became more frequent, and Claire started going out regularly for these wellness meetings. Owen's suspicions grew stronger when Claire announced she'd be attending a weekend retreat organized by the group. She talked about meditation, yoga, and self-awareness workshops with an enthusiasm Owen hadn't seen in years, not even when she talked about their family. On Friday morning, she left carrying a small suitcase and a brand new yoga backpack, promising to return Sunday night renewed and more connected to herself. Owen stayed home with Liam, trying not to show the growing unease he felt. When Claire came back from the retreat, something had changed for good. She seemed more distant, more reserved, like she was holding on to precious secrets she couldn't share. Their conversations became shallow, limited to discussions about household logistics and Liam's schedule. Owen tried to get closer, asking about the retreat and what she'd learned, but Claire responded with generalities about finding her true essence and the importance of self-worth. What bothered Owen most was the smell. When Claire returned home, there was a different scent in her hair, a perfume he didn't recognize, something expensive and sophisticated that didn't match the simple products she used to wear. Claire's routine changed dramatically. She started going out regularly on Tuesdays and Thursdays for group meetings, plus extra yoga and Pilates sessions. Her schedule became unpredictable, and she always had vague explanations for where she'd been. Owen noticed she'd gotten a new phone, claiming the old one had issues, and now she kept it with her at all times, checking messages obsessively. When he asked who she was texting, she'd get irritated and say it was just group coordination or wellness chats with Vanessa. It was during one of these absences that Owen decided to dig deeper. Liam had gone to sleep over at a friend's house, and Owen was alone at home, his hands still healing but his mind restless. He accessed the family computer, where Claire usually synced her photos and documents. At first, he didn't find anything suspicious, just photos of the moms group in yoga poses and forced smiles. But when he looked closer, he noticed a man in the background of several pictures, always positioned discreetly but definitely there. A middle-aged man, gray hair, confident expression. Owen didn't recognize him right away, but something about his face seemed familiar. The most disturbing discovery came when Owen decided to check the family's online bank accounts, something Claire usually handled alone, saying she had more time to manage the finances. Using the shared computer, he logged into their digital banking and found expenses he didn't recognize, expensive restaurants at times that didn't match Claire's known commitments, purchases at lingerie stores she'd never mentioned. Even more troubling were the frequent cash withdrawals, small amounts that wouldn't raise red flags individually, but which added up to thousands of dollars over several months. When he confronted Claire about these expenses, she got defensive, saying they were investments in her personal well-being and that Owen shouldn't question how she spent money she earned from her part-time job as an administrative assistant. The situation deteriorated quickly. Claire started coming home later and later, always with elaborate excuses about extended group sessions or planning dinners with Vanessa. Owen noticed she no longer showed any physical interest in him, avoiding intimacy and retreating to the bathroom as soon as she got home, taking long showers like she needed to wash something off. The few times they tried to have serious conversations, Claire was evasive, saying Owen was being paranoid because of the stress from his recovery and that he should trust her judgment more. The breaking point came when Owen found a text message on Claire's phone, which she'd left on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. The message was from someone named Daniel and said, "Can't wait to see you again. Yesterday was incredible. You mean so much to me." Owen felt the ground collapse beneath him. Daniel. The same name Claire had mentioned a few times, always in the context of the wellness group, saying he was a music teacher who occasionally gave talks about art and creativity to the moms group. Determined to find the truth, Owen hired his shop partner, Calvin Morrison, a discreet and trustworthy man who had worked as a private investigator before turning to woodworking. Calvin agreed to discreetly follow Claire during her next group outings. What he found confirmed Owen's worst fears. Claire wasn't attending wellness sessions. Instead, she was regularly meeting Daniel Hart, who was in fact married to Vanessa, the leader of the supposed women's empowerment group. Daniel Hart was a music teacher at the local gym and had used his position in the wellness group led by his wife Vanessa to seduce Claire. He'd used his apparent wisdom about personal development and spiritual growth to gain Claire's trust, offering intimate conversations about her unmet emotional needs in her marriage. What started as informal counseling turned into secret romantic meetings, with Daniel skillfully manipulating Claire's emotional vulnerabilities to start and maintain the affair. The evidence was undeniable. Calvin had obtained photos of Claire and Daniel entering and leaving hotels, plus records of phone calls where they discussed their intimate encounters and made plans to keep seeing each other. The most shocking part was learning that Claire had spent over $5,000 from the couple's joint account on gifts for Daniel, including an expensive watch and designer clothes. Owen was hit with a devastating mix of anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of relief at finally knowing the truth. For 15 years of marriage, he'd built his life around mutual trust and honesty, values he now realized had been one-sided. Claire hadn't just betrayed him, she'd built an elaborate web of lies, involving other people and using family resources to support her affair. The betrayal went beyond romance, it was a complete violation of the partnership they'd built together. Owen's decision was immediate and final. He wouldn't waste time on dramatic confrontations or attempts at reconciliation. Instead, he chose an approach that would publicly expose the truth and ensure everyone affected by Daniel and Vanessa's scheme knew exactly who they were dealing with. Owen knew the moms group was organizing a big community picnic at the local park, an event where Claire had volunteered to give a presentation about the benefits of the wellness program. Owen spent a few days carefully preparing his plan. He compiled all the evidence, photos, bank statements, text message records, hotel receipts, and a detailed timeline of Claire's meetings with Daniel. With Calvin's help, he created a professional PowerPoint presentation that systematically documented the affair and the fraudulent scheme. The plan was simple: on the day of the picnic, he'd volunteer to operate the audiovisual equipment, and when Claire started her presentation, he'd switch her slides with his evidence-based presentation. The day of the picnic arrived under sunny skies, ironically contrasting with the storm Owen was about to unleash. About 50 families were present, including many women from Claire's group, along with their husbands and children. Vanessa was there with Daniel, both playing the roles of a model couple and spiritual leaders in the community. Owen positioned himself quietly near the projection equipment, waiting for the right moment. When Claire stepped onto the makeshift stage and began her talk about personal transformation and self-discovery, Owen activated his replacement presentation. The first image on the screen was a photo of Claire and Daniel kissing at a hotel door. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire froze, staring at the screen in absolute horror. The next images showed intimate text messages between Claire and Daniel, along with photos of other romantic encounters. Chaos erupted immediately. Vanessa started screaming, absolutely shocked to discover her husband's betrayal, her tears mixing with rage as she realized how she'd been deceived. Daniel tried to run, but several husbands surrounded him, demanding answers. Some of the other women in the group began to cry, realizing they too had been victims of Daniel's manipulation during counseling sessions they thought were innocent. Claire stumbled off the stage, trying to reach Owen, but he stepped back, maintaining a physical distance that mirrored the emotional chasm now between them. The public confrontation was more devastating than Owen had imagined, but he stood firm in his decision. When Claire tried to speak to him, begging for a private conversation, he calmly told her that the time for honest talks had passed months ago. He informed her, in front of everyone, that she should pack her things and leave the family home immediately. Liam, who had watched the entire scene in shock, stayed by his father's side, showing through his choice where his loyalty lay. The consequences were immediate and severe. Daniel Hart was fired from his position at the gym after an investigation revealed he'd used school resources to fund his extramarital affairs, including renting rooms for fake wellness group meetings. Vanessa, exposed as an accomplice in the scheme, faced a complete collapse of her social reputation and immediately started divorce proceedings, trying to publicly distance herself from her husband's actions. Several other families in the community were affected, as the scheme had involved at least 6 married women over 2 years. Claire was forced to leave the family home that same night, taking only personal clothes and a few basic belongings. Owen had already consulted a lawyer, Margaret Cole, a sharp professional specializing in marital infidelity cases, and had the separation papers ready. The lawyer had advised Owen on his legal rights and helped protect the family assets, including the workshop and the house, ensuring Claire couldn't make significant withdrawals from joint accounts without legal authorization. The impact on the community was deep and lasting. The scandal spread quickly through local social media and messaging groups, sparking heated debates about trust, marriage, and personal responsibility. Some residents criticized Owen for making the situation public, arguing that marital issues should be handled privately. Others praised his courage in exposing a scheme that had hurt multiple families, seeing his actions as a service to the community. Owen faced immediate challenges in his business. Some customers canceled orders, uncomfortable with the public exposure or judging his approach as overly vengeful. Still, he also received unexpected support from fellow local artisans who admired his integrity and offered partnerships and job referrals. His custom furniture workshop began getting orders from clients who valued his reputation for honesty and quality, allowing Owen to maintain financial stability during the transition. The legal process moved quickly. Margaret Cole built a solid case based on the collected evidence, including detailed documentation of Claire's unauthorized spending and proof of her ongoing infidelity. Claire initially tried to fight the accusations and push for an equal division of assets, but the strength of the evidence against her made that strategy impossible. She eventually agreed to a settlement that gave her a smaller share of the marital assets in exchange for a faster resolution. During this time, Owen focused intensely on his relationship with Liam. The 12-year-old had been deeply affected by the scandal, facing difficult questions from classmates and dealing with his mother's sudden absence. Owen sought psychological counseling for both of them, recognizing that the situation had caused trauma that needed proper attention. He was careful not to demonize Claire in front of his son, but he also refused to downplay the seriousness of her actions. Liam showed surprising maturity in handling the situation. He expressed anger over his mother's lies and betrayal, but also an instinctive understanding that his father had made the right choices to protect their family. During a particularly difficult conversation, Liam asked his dad if he still loved Claire. Owen answered honestly that he still felt love for the person Claire had once been, but that person apparently no longer existed, or maybe had never existed the way he thought. Attempts at religious mediation came through the local church pastor, Reverend Michael Torres, who had known the family for years. He approached Owen suggesting marriage counseling and Christian forgiveness as paths toward reconciliation. Owen listened respectfully but made it clear he didn't see value in forgiving out of social or religious obligation when there was no real sign of remorse or change from Claire. Social pressure to reconcile came from several directions. Some of Claire's relatives, including her sister Jennifer, tried to intervene, arguing that everyone makes mistakes and that 15 years of marriage should count for more than a few indiscretions. Owen rejected these arguments, explaining that the issue wasn't about forgiveness, but about trust and mutual respect. He had discovered that Claire hadn't just cheated on him, she had built an elaborate double life, lied consistently, and manipulated people around her to sustain her lies. Owen took further steps to ensure the truth about Daniel's manipulations wouldn't be forgotten or downplayed. He compiled a complete dossier with all the evidence and sent it to relevant authorities, including the local school board, which was investigating Daniel's misuse of school resources. He also shared information with lawyers representing other affected families, contributing to broader legal actions against the Hart couple. Owen and Liam's daily life gradually found a new rhythm. Mornings became calmer, without the constant tension that had marked the last months of the marriage. Owen found he could focus better on his work, creating furniture pieces with renewed dedication that showed in the higher quality of his craftsmanship. He established clear routines with Liam, including regular dinners where they openly discussed their lives, feelings, and future plans. Special projects emerged as a way to heal and connect between father and son. Owen decided to build an elaborate treehouse in the backyard, a project he'd promised Liam years ago but had always postponed due to other priorities. Working together on weekends, they built an impressive structure with multiple levels, custom windows, and even a pulley system to lift supplies. The project became a metaphor for rebuilding and growth, symbolizing their ability to create something beautiful and functional even after destruction. Claire made several attempts to reconnect with Liam during this time. At first, she sent expensive gifts and long letters explaining her regrets and promising change. With guidance from Owen and the therapist, Liam learned to critically assess these attempts. He realized many of Claire's promises were empty and that she was more interested in relieving her own guilt than in genuinely repairing the relationship she had damaged. The divorce process reached its peak when Claire proposed a quick settlement. She'd give up claims to the family home and the workshop in exchange for freedom to move to California, where she'd gotten a job through family connections. Owen accepted the offer without hesitation, recognizing that physical distance would help the whole family heal emotionally. The agreement also set up supervised visits between Claire and Liam during specific holidays, but only if the boy expressed interest in maintaining contact. The final divorce papers were signed on a rainy autumn day, 6 months after the picnic that changed everything. Owen felt a complex mix of relief, sadness, and hope. He wasn't celebrating the end of his marriage, but he recognized he was freeing himself from a toxic situation that had drained his energy and compromised his integrity. Margaret Cole congratulated Owen on his decisive and strategic approach, noting that many men in similar situations end up harmed by hesitation or misplaced sentimentality. Months passed before Owen fully realized how much his life had improved. He was sleeping better, eating with more enjoyment, and finding renewed satisfaction in his craft. Clients began seeking him out specifically because of his reputation for integrity, and he developed a loyal customer base that valued both the quality of his furniture and his personal character. The workshop expanded modestly, and Owen considered the possibility of teaching woodworking skills to young people in the community. Liam thrived under the more stable structure Owen had created. His school grades improved, he developed new interests in music and sports, and he showed impressive emotional maturity for his age. During a conversation about the future, Liam said he'd learned valuable lessons about honesty and consequences from what his family had been through. He said he never wanted to cause the kind of pain his mother had caused, and that he valued transparency in all his relationships. The most lasting impact of the experience was the transformation of Owen's life philosophy. He developed a clearer understanding of the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, realizing it was possible to forgive someone's actions without accepting continued destructive behavior. He also learned to value direct honesty over superficial peace, preferring honest conflict to harmony built on lies. Claire made one final attempt at meaningful communication before moving permanently to California. She wrote a long letter detailing her regrets and explaining the emotional pressures that led to her choices. The letter included apologies and suggestions for family therapy to rebuild relationships. Owen read it carefully but realized it still showed a limited understanding of the damage she'd caused. Claire was focused on explaining her motivations rather than fully accepting responsibility for the harm done. Owen's response was brief and respectful. He said he held no personal grudges, but that trust once broken on such a scale couldn't be fixed by explanations or promises. He wished her well in her new life, but made it clear he had no interest in maintaining any personal relationship beyond the legal obligations tied to Liam's fatherhood. The local community gradually absorbed the lessons of the Hart scandal into its collective awareness. The incident sparked more open discussions about marital fidelity, communication in relationships, and the dangers of schemes that exploit emotional vulnerabilities. Some families strengthened their marriages through honest conversations inspired by Owen's example, while others uncovered their own issues that needed attention. Owen found unexpected satisfaction in becoming an informal example of integrity for other men in the community. He didn't seek this role, but he discovered his experience could help others facing similar challenges. Without positioning himself as a counselor, he offered practical perspectives on dealing with betrayal, protecting family interests, and maintaining personal dignity during marital crises. The treehouse Owen and Liam built together became a recognized symbol in their neighborhood. Other families began visiting to admire the structure, and some hired Owen to build similar projects for their own kids. What had started as a personal healing project turned into a new specialty business line that combined functionality with deep emotional meaning. On the first anniversary of the picnic that changed their lives, Owen and Liam took a walk to the park where it had all happened. They sat in the same spot where Owen had exposed the truth about Claire and Daniel, reflecting on how their lives had changed. Liam said he felt safer and happier than he had in a long time, and that he admired his dad's courage in choosing truth over convenience. Owen acknowledged that his journey hadn't been about revenge or punishment, but about setting clear boundaries and appropriate consequences for actions that violated fundamental values. He'd learned that protecting his family and his integrity sometimes required difficult decisions others might not understand or approve. What mattered was that he could look at Liam and himself with pride, knowing he'd faced adversity with honesty and determination. The future stretched ahead of them with open possibilities and a solid foundation of mutual trust. Owen wasn't looking for a new romantic relationship, focusing his energy on being an exemplary father and building a successful business. Liam was developing his own interests and friendships, supported by the stability his father had created. Together, they had built a life based on clear values, where honesty, respect, and appropriate consequences shaped their daily decisions. Owen Bell's story became a lesson on how to face betrayal with dignity and resolve. He had learned that not all marriages can or should be saved, and that sometimes the best way to love a family is to protect it from destructive influences, even when those influences come from within. His experience showed that true strength isn't about enduring any behavior in the name of family preservation, but about having the courage to set high standards and enforce real consequences when those standards are broken. Owen and Liam moved forward, building a life where integrity and honesty weren't just abstract ideals, but daily practices that defined who they chose to be. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.